It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We came to Japan to see how much time is wasted by Japanese bowing to each other, which is why motorists have less time to practice safety rules. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
We're back with Talk Funny. I'm Mark Bailey, and Mike Miller's back again.
Hello.
So, Mike, we won't go into this too much, but we talked about an altercation that I had at a convenience store, which is really making Mount Rushmore out of a molehill.
Yeah.
Basically, it was nothing, and this guy wanted to make it a big deal. And I called this place before the passive-aggressive store because it's a story that I told. You got to remember something about Nagoya Port. The Yakuza actually lives out there. In the back, behind the buildings, there's a little, what's it called, back alley, riverfront? Mm-hmm. It's a river back, actually. And that's where the black vans and the Yakuza both hang out there. It's not a very foreigner-friendly place. Yeah. It's actually, Nagoya is not that friendly anyway.
Well, I guess it's natural they would be down by the port because that's where all the goods come in, right? And the illegal goods as well, right?
Right. They are smuggling in speed or some other drugs, and apparently the Taiwan Mafia and the Japanese Yakuza are collaborating. So the cops are automatically suspicious of any activity. Why were you buying a salad at midnight? Well, just because I did a show, the show from hell, ended at 11.
They wouldn't believe your alibi. I was doing this show for Portuguese speakers in English, and they'd be like,
right.
Okay, yeah, great story there, Mark.
So I should have noticed the signs. This is something that happened a year and a half ago. And I walked in, and I was going to buy some more things. I ended up only buying 2 things, but I already had one of those little baskets. So I put the 2 items in the basket. And this lady who has rung me up there many, many times, I heard her, this is a thing that Japanese women did. It shows annoyance. They tisk. Kind of, can't believe you did that. So I'm not married to you, Yenta. You can't do that to me. And so she did that, took the 2 items out of the basket, walked the basket to the back of the store, made me wait, comes back without the basket. I said, is there a reason you made me wait? You could have done that after you rung me up. What was that? You made a point of doing that. She said, well, you only bought 2 items and used the basket. And then what I told Steve before is I said, well, there's some other things I was going to buy, but you don't have Brazilian whores here, so I can't. You don't sell cocaine. So I only end up buying 2 items. Do you want me to buy the 2 items or not? And that was just your ordinary, that's the ordinary attitude at that store towards foreigners.
Would you like some passive with your aggressive?
So I'm not saying they hate foreigners. All I'm saying is 052-659-60. We'll drop the other 2 digits later. Meiko Ichome Family Mart. All the other Family Marts are fine. I would patronize them, and I do. And as a matter of fact, there's one also near my house that I patronize now instead of this other one. I'm not even riding. I used to ride past that place on my bicycle, and I decided not to do that because the cameras will show you he's riding past here every day.
He's threatening. There's
a subway station. I don't know if the cops noticed this, but there's a subway station right past that store. It might be the reason they built that store because of the subway station, because it's near traffic. So I even changed my itinerary. I don't go around that place
For those
anymore.
of you who think Mark is paranoid, please listen to one of our previous podcasts where he talked about his run-in in the subway.
Yeah, I think things are getting worse. We were talking about the old stories where Justin and Miles and some of the things that, and even myself, some things that we got away with in the 90s, I don't think we would get away with it as foreigners now. I think the climate's changed, and police were afraid during the rugby tournaments and the soccer, the World Cup, they were really afraid of hooligans. And hooligans, by definition, can't be Japanese. They have to be foreigners, right? And so also, it's a new generation of Japanese. It used to be live and let live in the 90s. Well, the foreigner didn't know any difference. He didn't know that he's not supposed to do that. Warn him, he'll probably never do it again.
Yeah.
You don't need to make paperwork out of it. You don't need to take his picture and make a mugshot. Now, they basically want to make an example out of you. So anytime someone says, should I call the police? The answer is no, thank you. Because it's never going to go well for the foreigner.
Yeah.
Well, who are you going to call? You're going to call the New York police? That might actually work in my favor. Go ahead. No, they're going to call the local police. These are the same guys that were in the baseball team in your university class that never studied English because they hate English. Now, they got kicked out of the baseball team. The only job they can do is police officer. And a police officer in Japan will tell you ignorance of the law is no excuse for committing a crime, right, Mike? But ignorance of the law is, however, a qualification for becoming a police officer in Japan, apparently. That's actually something I did in Tokyo. I got a lot of good laughs. And I wish it weren't true, but it's basically, I wish it were not.
There's a lot of cases of that.
The cops are here to make an example of you. And I think even New York cops have changed now. In New York in the 80s and 90s, the cops, they'd say, hey, I see Mike, he's about to park illegally. The cop will drive by and go, don't do that, you're going to get a ticket. I'm going to be by here in 5 minutes. I see your car, you're getting a ticket, man, just warning you. And then you go, F the police, and then you go to prison. No, in the 80s, 90s, they'd warn you, don't screw up, kid. They'd basically be a father figure. Unless you're selling single cigarettes on the street and you're a black guy, because that's obviously the worst thing you could be doing. Obviously, he's selling single cigarettes.
Extreme force required.
Death penalty for that, of course. No, but in the 80s and 90s, it's gotten very paranoid now, because you've got people, the Antifa, saying kill the police. And you've got black people and minorities who think that they're being targeted. After 20 or 30 years of driving while black, being pulled over just because of your skin color. That does happen. It happens here to foreigners. It happens in the States. So I understand that. But the 80s, 90s cops, not L.A., they were always pretty bad, but in New York, they used to be, their strategy was, I don't want to have to pull my pad out, and then I have to write a report.
Right.
You don't want me to write a report, Mike. I don't want to write a report.
Yeah.
Just don't step in the cement.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's wet cement, all right? Don't step in it.
Laziness was on our side.
I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. And if you're still here, now we're going to have a problem. You're going to make me address you. I'm telling you ahead of time, don't do it. And so people in the past, 80s and 90s, one time I had a fight with my friend, and we're out fighting on the street, but we're just kind of, it's not a real fight. We're just kind of goofing around. We're not really trying to hurt each other. We're just goofing around. Rough house. Well, take the hat, give him my hat back, give him your hat, and put down your shirt, tear the shirt up, all this kind of crap. Two cops drive up, and now they'd make a big deal out of it. But in the past, now it would be on CNN. In the 80s, when this happened,
drone flying overhead, taking video.
A cop pulls up, and we're like, oh, crap. And I said to my friend, we got to tell him we're actually friends. We're just goofing off, you know. And the cop comes up, and he goes, don't tell me I have to pull my pencil out, and I have to pull out my pad, because you two jamokes can't get along with each other. What's the problem? I'm going to ask you one time. Well, I don't want to hear that. He goes, I said, we're actually friends. We're just goofing off. We'll leave now, officer.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to be back. Next 10 minutes, we'll be back again. Probably you guys should go home. And we went home. We go, no justice, no peace. No. I have a right to do this.
He started out.
So the cops used to be there to help you. But the Japanese cops have never been here to help the foreigners.
No.
I think in the 90s, they didn't really know what to do. And they just say, probably misunderstanding. And just don't do it again.
Well, they could have had maybe kind of post-war fear as well of like, because there, so many American soldiers were stationed here after the war, and they were kind of like, "Ooh, don't mess with the foreigners because it might be look bad for us internationally," or something like that.
But I don't think these cops were old enough. I mean, they'd be in their 50s or 60s even then, right? But I think it used to be they didn't have as many foreigners. But now, when I got stopped on, people listen to podcasts, I've been stopped on my bike 8 times in 1 month, and after a while, you start to get paranoid.
Yeah.
But they'll say, recently, if you happen to get stopped today, they will say this, I guarantee it. Police will say, recently, there's been a rash of bicycle thefts. Well, they've been saying that for 25 years.
What have you guys been doing about it?
Yeah, apparently you don't know what to do about it. I haven't seen this in the news. Really, what page? You'd think that would be front page news.
Yeah.
And so I said to a policeman one time, and he was just shocked. I said, the majority of bicycle thieves in Japan are Japanese.
Yeah.
No, a lot of China. No, more are Japanese.
Did you know the majority of criminals in Japan are Japanese?
Do you know that?
Shocking.
Do you know they drank tea 150 years ago in Japan, and now all of those people are dead?
It must have been the tea.
Every time when I bring an umbrella, it rains later. Cause and effect. I think you might want to study that. I said, that's why foreigners come here. There's this huge bicycle theft ring.
Yeah.
It pays really well.
Yeah, it's great
I pay for my house on that. We know that you're watching us for stealing bikes, so that's the one crime we're not going to ever commit. But I think I told a story back in the 90s where there was a library that I had to go to. I was studying something, and I had to go. I was in a course, and they were supposed to be open every Saturday morning. They weren't open. They were only open every other Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. So I'd complain, and I'd say, sometimes you guys aren't open on Saturday. And they said, we're always open on Saturday morning. I said, no, I come at 9, and you're not open. Last week you weren't open. And they said, we're always open. You're mistaken. I said, well, the door doesn't open, and it's locked, and the lights are out. But you're open then? And they said, well, that must have been not a Saturday. And I said, no. So how about next Saturday? I'm tired of arguing. Some Saturdays you are actually not open. How about this next Saturday? Are you going to be open? And they said, yes. I showed up. They were closed. I was frustrated. With my tennis shoe, I just kind of tapped a couple times this wire mesh glass door, sliding door that they had. It shattered.
Yeah.
It's shattered just with the tap. 2 taps I did.
Yeah.
And they didn't have cameras on at this time. And so I just left, and I never went back to that library again because they're going to figure out. Maybe it's the guy who calls every week bitching that we're not open on Saturday. Do you remember that Saturday when we said we were open and we weren't open?
Yeah.
Probably that guy.
Yeah.
If we had been open, that wouldn't have happened, actually. I tell that story because now, if it had happened this year, with its cameras everywhere, and I think you'd face consequences.
Well, you have to, and that is the thing that we have to, you have to consider is the surveillance nowadays. There are cameras everywhere, and that doesn't just mean that if you do something, you're going to get caught. It also means that if the police show up, there's something untoward going on, that's going to be captured on video. So people are performing for the camera. They're like, well, I don't have the, I don't have the ability to just say, this time I'll let you off, just go away, because they know it's being recorded. So they have to put on a show, right? And show that they're being there enforcing the law 100%.
We've talked before on other podcasts about punchlines that I get from maybe tragedies, murders and things like that. The Jonestown Massacre, I got a couple punchlines out of that. So, what I learned from the Oklahoma City bombing in 95, this really made an impression on me. I was amazed that they tracked Timothy McVeigh. They had him at a McDonald's. They had him at a hardware store, all from the cameras.
Yeah.
These were like 2 doors down from the incident. And then they have his truck turning a corner. They had pings from a cell phone.
And this was in the 90s.
Yeah, and they could track this before NSA.
Before everyone had cell phones. And
when I saw that, I was thinking, maybe don't commit a bombing in the U.S. in 1995. Maybe I'll pick another country. I don't know. Maybe the corner of Mexico in Nagoya Port. No, but that's what I notice is, wow. If you're going to, you see this in movies, but if you actually were going to, if an incident happened, let's say you accidentally, as self-defense, you accidentally killed somebody with a knife or something. You're struggling with a knife. Okay, you want to change clothes.
Club.
Yeah, in front of a.
It happens.
Inside a convenience store,
Inside
let's
a convenience
say.
Store?
About carrots. That story, that literally. Crying over spilled milk, arguing over spilled carrots is basically what we're doing there. Yeah, but so what I learned was there's cameras everywhere. So you'd have to change. You saw The Americans, that drama? I
saw a little bit of it, yeah.
Well, you notice one thing they do is after they do something in public, they are changing hats and shirts en route. I mean, they're just changing. So you turn the corner, now it's a guy in a blue hat. And they're just changing disguises constantly. With cameras everywhere, now that's what you'd have to do. So if you were actually going to break a window at this Family Mart place that I talked about, you'd have to actually do that. So
some advice for you
hello, Patreon.
Canadian comedians out there, not Canadians. Canadians would never do that.
Hello, Patreon. All right, so we'll end this for now. It's been Mark Bailey with Mike Miller. Talk Funny.